So we've got Mr. Elephant. And today we're going to draw in what is called grisaille. So usually you're drawing in black and white anyway, because that's what your graphite or your charcoal or your pencil is. So grisaille usually is a term used for painting. But so that's why we're introducing the watercolor paint, but it's when you paint in the value scale. So it's in only black, whites, and grays. So the idea is for it to kind of look like a sculpture or look like something that you might be able to touch a little bit. And so an elephant works perfectly for this. We've got a pretty realistic elephant today, and we're going to work through drawing its basic outline. Then we're going to put some shades in. Then we're going to use our brushes to go ahead and jump in and add those little extra touches that we won't shade with our pencil. If you happen to have charcoal, you can use charcoal as well. Charcoal is water soluble, which means when we paint it, your charcoal will get moved along with the paint. So you can draw in either one. Just know if you're using your charcoal, it's going to do that. So I'm going to draw in charcoal because you can see it a little bit easier. Let me move all my stuff. I'm not always the tidiest supply station here. I'm going to move you a little closer. And if you notice, our elephant, we're only going to concentrate on the front half. So you can do this in drawing. You don't have to put the whole animal on one piece, so you can focus. We have a parrot coming up that we're going to do that we're only going to focus on the head, and we get to splatter some paint on that. So warning, mom. So let's go ahead and remember our composition. So here's our full size of the paper. So when we put the head in, you see how it's up here and it's pretty big. It's about the size of my hand on this paper. So what you're going to do is let's go ahead and put a big circle where that head would be. Okay, about there. So that's right up here. You should have at least enough room to put another circle down here. So if you wanted to put another one, but that way you get that idea and that size. So we're just going to go ahead and we're not even going to worry. I feel you've got this so much. You kind of know where the shapes are. This would be a rectangle. This would be a rectangle. And look, the ear looks like a triangle. I think we're just going to jump in and draw straight once we've landed where our head is, because we don't have the rest of the body. So let's go ahead and draw the trunk off of this front part. We're going to angle it up a little bit and get this part of our drawing in laid out. So come to the top of your circle and you're going to kind of come up like a little hump. See what I did there? That little hump on the top of the circle. And then we're going to come out. So see, there's our circle. We're going to come out a little bit. We do that. And then we're going to drop it down a long line. Now, look at this. This is about as tall as this. So if we want to kind of measure where your circle is, you want your trunk to go about that same distance. So I use my hand, it's from my thumb to my pinky. And I'll go from my thumb to my pinky. So I know I want to end it about here. You see that? So I'm going to go ahead and draw that line and then curl up right to where I put that little dot. So what I did is I want to make sure that that relationship up here is the same down here to help me get my scale. That trunk is really long. It's got to reach up in the top of trees. It's got to reach around to pick up the baby. It's got to do all sorts of things. So, and it's got to reach from the tree all the way back up into that elephant mouth. So if you've got that measured and you draw it down and we've got that little opening, we're going to bring it around, kind of comes around like that. So it looks like a backwards J. And then I'm going to do a little line here, just drop it down. And then I'm going to carry that back up to the circle like so. See how we've got that elephant trunk going there? This part will be our elephant trunk, and you can make it thicker, thinner, whatever makes it work for you. And then that way we know that this is where this goes behind. So that's as though the trunk is kind of folded around. When we draw our lines, we'll make sure that we get that information. So we've basically got the front of the head right here, the trunk. We've got to come to the circle. Let's give it a little light smiley face. And then we're just going to come right there. We know where our ear is going to come to this point. So we did kind of like a smiley face and we connected it to the trunk. So we're getting this little kind of lumpy right there. So just so we know where the top of the ear will be, let's go ahead and finish off the top. And if this is the end of your paper, you're going to take this part of the elephant all the way to the very end of your paper. So you should have plenty of room on this side, you know, right here. But this part's going to go all the way off the side of your paper. It's going to explode off the side. So let's start at the top. We're going to come back up from the trunk. And that very first line we drew, we're going to come straight across our circle, then come up, and then come to the end of our paper right there. So we've got that top. I guess if you were going to ride the elephant, your hands would be about right here, and you would be riding right on the elephant. And you're going to see elephants if you ever go to Animal Kingdom by Disney. So let's go ahead and do that ear. We're going to come back up to where that circle is. Remember where we touched on this side? We're going to start on this side. So we're back up at the top right here. Let's come down and we're going to come over like that. So see, it's this line that comes straight across and then drops down at an angle. Now I am above where this line is, but I'm getting pretty close to it. And we're going to follow this raggedy edge all the way down to right here. So we know we're going to have to come all the way over to here, but a little bit below. When we look at our picture, see how we study that? And it comes up, this drops down a little bit and goes there. So you can give your ear a little bit of wiggle and come all the way down like that. Looks funny because we don't have all of it. That looks like a little ghost if I put little eyes. It's funny when I'm drawing and then I look in it looks different on here than when I see it in the screen, so I can make sure that it's all in there. Okay, so you've got that. We did a wavy because that edge of that ear is not super smooth. And we're going to bring this line straight up. And then we're going to curve it in like that. So we're underneath this line. We're leaving a little bit of a space. And we've got that shape of the ear right there. Okay. So we've got a trunk, an ear. While we're right here, let's go ahead and put where our eye is. So if we look over here, it's about where that ear bends. So if we're going to go halfway in between, we're going to put that eye in there. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to put an oval like that with a little triangle on the side. Okay. And we'll go around that. In fact, you can even just color it in so you know what that is. You're like, what is that? Oh, that's the eye. That's that elephant's eye. Okay, so we've got the trunk, which really is the mouth and acts like an arm because it reaches. We've got the mouth, the eye, and it's the nose. It's a whole bunch of things. And the ears. So we've got really a lot of parts of the face. We just need to put these 2 feet in and then a little information about the body. Now notice this foot is in front and this foot is behind. So we're not going to see all that information. So let's do that front foot there. We're going to come up to about midway in our ear right there. And then we're going to come down at a little bit of a diagonal to just a little bit below where the trunk is. Okay. And then I'm going to come over a little bit. And we're just following, you're following my lines. And I'm going to come up a little bit. So I've come down and I'm going to arc over. See, we've got that big, that's the knee. It's on the back. Isn't that funny? But that's the knee. So it arcs up and then we're going to bring that up. So you should be almost to the end, but you can really see those rectangle shapes when we're just doing that outline like that. So let's add that other one, kind of drops down behind the knee, comes along, and is right there like that. So we've got two legs. Reminds me of Babar. I don't know if anybody knows who Babar is, but it's an elephant. There are lots of real cute books. So let's go ahead and put that body information in there. See, this is this little triangle right here. So you're going to do that. That body information is going to be there. And then way down here above the knee, we're going to put a line back to the end of your paper. Okay, so that's basically, you should have the body, the ear, the eye, the trunk, the leg, and the knee. So we're going to stick with our, if you have charcoal, you can use it. We're going to stick with our charcoal and our pencil, and we're going to put some directional lines in. Now, you've done this before in other things, but it's when we try to follow the direction of the shape, not necessarily our line, but the shape. So the trunk is round. So if we turn it side, it needs to have a shape that follows it. So we kind of did that with the tiger stripes a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to make those lines go around the trunk. So what we do is see how it has a little bit of a curve to it. So I'm going to make light lines. See how they curve a little bit. They're not straight across. If I put something straight across, you can see that there's a curve, and I'm doing them a little lightly. So we're going to go down all the way down, and don't worry about the fact they're not all the way across here. Well, okay, till I get to this point. So they've all curved a little bit that way. Now it's almost like a peppermint. We've done this before with flowers. You're going to start at the center, that point, and we're making it turn the corner. See how that starts to make it look like it's moving around. So you do your lines like happy faces down here. And when you get to that point right here, you're going to do all your lines originating from that point. And they're going to come out still at a curve, but it starts looking like a peppermint. Okay. So that's going to help us see that direction of the trunk and that it's cylindrical, that it has that. It's also going to be a guideline for our wrinkles because we've got a wrinkly elephant here. So we're going to take that idea of wrinkles and lines and we're going to continue it on up. So you see how our lines come up this way? Well, let's go ahead and give ourselves some lines. So we're going to go ahead and give ourselves some wrinkly lines to right below the eye and come up, almost all the way to the top, behind the ear, Mr. Wrinkly Elephant. Give us all the way to the right here to that first line where our ear starts. Okay. So you should have the lines on the trunk. And then we've got some wrinkly lines. They're up and down, but they've got a little movement to them because nature is not just perfectly square. So let's put some wrinkly lines around our eye. And we're just going to kind of go around it like that. So these are directional lines because we're following the eye. See how I kind of went around it like that? That's going to help us know where to put that shading in. Then we've got just a few more that we're going to add where we have some elements. This is also it acts like the trunk, where we're going to have to make it round out. So that's the beginning of the ear. So remember you did the wrinkles right here. So here, we're gonna do some curved lines, a little bit like what we did down here. You don't need that many, but you just want them at that top that it curves around. Anytime you want to make something completely flat, if you're dimensional or have shape. And then we're going to add a few wrinkles right here at that top part of the ear, right here. We have a great ear. I don't know how much my circle will erase, but I'm going to erase part of my circle if that might help you to see where I'm. Might make it less confusing with all our lines. But there we go. That might help a little bit. So then you can give yourselves a few wrinkles back here. Not too many, but a few. We've got a wrinkly elephant. And then we're going to wrinkle the knee, and then we're going to start shading. So this knee right here, you see right there, it's as though it would be the kneecap, and this would be the round part, but we see it from the side. Let me hold that up for you. So you see that right there? That's the part we're looking at. Okay. So we're going to put a circle at the end of it. And then we're going to kind of make concentric circles. There we go. Okie doke. So we've got the basic outline of our elephant. We've got all those things. Now we're going to put in a background. So that way our elephant will really pop. So what I want you to do is if you have, like I'm using this set. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over to this gray. This has had a lot of splatter on it. Can come to this gray, and I'm going to take the biggest brush that I have. I don't have really big brushes back here. And I'm going to get that good and wet in that gray. So to do that, I'm going to add plenty of water. Plenty of water right here. And I'm going to paint all around the outside of my elephant. Okay. That way, it's really going to help us see that elephant. So I'm painting my background, and I'm using that gray. And you don't have to paint all the space. I'm just painting right now. I'm painting right up next to it. Okay. See how that starts popping that out from the surface? I'm also not on watercolor paper. So if you're not on watercolor paper, it will wrinkle a little bit. So I'm just trying to get right up against it so that I can really pop that elephant. So I'm using gray. You don't think about using gray watercolor a lot. If you don't have gray watercolor, so I'm just going right around it. So it really, see how that makes it stand away from the white? So kind of go around it, and then that way it'll push it out. Now, later on, you can fill in the rest of your background as you want to. Right now, for class time's sake, we're just going to do that surrounding. But look what happens. See how that elephant now jumps out a little bit at you. You really see that white. So you always want to remember what you're comparing it against. Before it was just flat, but when we add some dark, light always comes forward and dark always recedes. So we're going to really see that when we start adding our dark. So once you get that all around, and I'll let you do that, we're going to start looking at some of these dark spaces. And so we're going to come in and use some of our black watercolor in just a little bit and a small brush. And we're going to add the dark. And then we're going to shade using our pencils or our charcoal. And then if you want to come back and add light, if you've lost anything, there's some white watercolor or you can have white charcoal. So if everyone's feeling like they kind of have their background and their outline, the next thing you can do is get a smaller brush. So I'm going to look over here, and it doesn't have to be tiny, but I'm going to use a brush like this because I'm going to want to get in to these lines. So a brush like that, or it can be flat. Just try and use a little bit smaller one. Looking over here. That's probably, oh, this is a good one too. Okay. So here's a couple. They're not too big, but we're going to use the black watercolor. And if you don't have your watercolors, you can always use your charcoal to do this, to make it, or your pencil to make it dark. But because I like having you use different mediums and interacting and doing all that. And now we should have this pretty dry around our outside, and you get that idea. We're going to take that smaller brush, and if you don't have all your background, don't worry. And we're going to get that black watercolor. Now, we don't use black watercolor very often, or at least I don't. I usually, if I'm going to get a dark, I like to use a deep purple, a blue that I mix. I don't usually use black. So I have a very, very full black container right here. So I'm going to take my black, and I'm going to activate that. And I've got my smaller brush. I'm going to make sure I have plenty in there. And that way it will activate quickly every time I put my brush on it. Okay, so we're using a combination of, just like last week we did watercolor and oil pastel, we're using a combination of charcoal or pencil and watercolor. And so this shows you how you can mix your mediums, and sometimes it gives you all sorts of neat effects. So are you ready? Do you have some black and a small brush? And we're going to start looking for the dark areas. So the first place I see a really dark area is right here. You see that shadow? So remember that triangle we first painted? We're going to go ahead and color that in black. That triangle we drew right here, we didn't paint it, sorry. I'm going to color that in black right there, right here under that ear. That nice, beautiful black. And then I'm going to go all along the ear, all the way up to the top. So I'm going to do this. So all along the ear from that black, like that. And then I'm going to come right here. Okay. And I'm going to come all the way up to that tippy top. You see how that black really starts to push that ear to the front? So we're looking at this area right there, and we're making that dark. So you can use this in your drawing too. If you have a coloring book and it needs to be really dark, you can always use this kind of technique too. Okay. So we're going to just really pop those dark areas just so we really get them. And we've got that nice dark. So we noticed we did this part right here. Oh, look at that nice dark area right there. So remember where we painted the body over here, or we drew the body right behind that knee and that leg? We're going to color that in black. Okay. And as you get to the top, just add water. Okay. So I've taken that part right here with the body, and I've blocked that out in that black. So we know we've got that great shading right there. Okay. So I've got that area, and I'm really just trying to get the super dark areas on the elephant. And then we're going to use our pencils to shade against that. So those were our easiest areas. I'll just tell you, that was the easiest. And then we're going to use a technique where we're going to follow along the lines with our brush. So that's why we have a smaller brush. We're going to stick with the black, and then we're going to move around and see these dark areas here. We're going to get those, and then we're going to come over to the trunk and that part of the ear. And we're going to get that black so we really pop it. So still with my black and my small brush, I'm going to come down along the back. Look, I'm just coming right along the back of that leg. So I just did about one brush width, and I came right along the back of that leg. Okay, so it's almost like I'm making the line thicker. Now here's where it gets a little tricky. Remember those lines we drew? We're going to come up along the side of them. So just come up from the bottom like that. See how we're making those lines? It's as though I'm filling in those little rings, but just from the bottom. See how we start to make those shadows? You can come a little bit there at the top, but not too much if you do. So that gives us that shape. And so what I'm doing is where the line is. So if the line is like this, I'm coming up with my brush and angling it almost like I'm making a triangle shape. See how we start to get that shape right there? That same idea, just that first line, we're going to darken the back of the, you just have to remember how we just made it thicker. I'll go a little along the bottom. We just made it thicker. Go ahead and do that on the back leg too. I could just sit here and fuss all day long. Fuss, fuss, fuss. So, okay. You've kind of got that idea about the knee. We're going to take that idea and do it around the face and the trunk. So here we go. We're going to take that brush and that black, and we're going to come right here. Remember how we made that line thicker? We're going to do that along this side of the trunk, just like we did with the leg. So I'm going to come down. And I'm going to make a little circle right where our main circle is. So as though you just came down here, and then look, it's like I came to a little circle right there. So we just followed that line. We're keeping that dark line right there. Then we're going to have to do a line across around the bottom. So same idea, but see right here at the very bottom of our hook, we're just going to darken that because that's underneath. So we're going to put a little line right there. So we've got a line coming along the bottom of the face, down here, and then we're going to curve that little one right around there. Same idea we did over here. And then we're going to take it to the trunk. Okay. Just like this. Remember how you kind of start out thicker and then you pull your brush so it's a little thinner? What does that look like on the trunk? We're going to make, it's almost like a little tiger. We're going to make little lines where your lines are. And then you can make more lines. Give that elephant a wrinkly trunk. So I'm pulling them along those first lines I made, just like that. All the way. when you get down here, I guess you get darker at the bottom and then come into the center. And then I'm going to have the lines go in and out like this. So go ahead and give yourself some other lines. I'll remind you of the tiger. So do lines from both sides that don't have to go. That elephant needs a wrinkly trunk. So you're going to have that lines kind of going back and forth like that. It's going to give us that idea. It does remind me a lot of the tiger that we did. So hopefully that you got that idea with that, how to move that line shape. Okay. We're going to take that same wrinkly idea on the trunk and we're going to take it up and move it on the face. So it's same idea. You're going to come along your wrinkle lines and just start thick at the bottom. Like this, giving ourselves, that elephant is getting wrinkly by the minute. So we're following these wrinkles right here. Look at that. And then you can do it a little bit from the top, but not too much. We don't want to thicken that line, but that'll give us just a little bit while you're there. That'll get us going on that one. And then we're going to do the ear and the eye in this back and then pick up our pencils again. Okie doke. So we've got the eye, which you might have colored in so you can make it blacker if you want, now that you have some paint. And then we're going to do the same idea. So starting at this point, I'm going to be darker and thicker. And I'm going to follow those lines. So this is the dark part. See this part right here? And we're going to follow those lines, making those, that eye, old elephant, you wise old elephant. So we got lines on the trunk, lines right there. And we're going to add some lines right here. Remember where we did the ear? We'll get that. Darken, remember right here in the ear where we had those two little shapes. We've got two shapes like this. Just thicken those lines. And then you can thicken those. Remember those little, in that same, like thicker to thin. So this is doing the work of the dark part for us. Getting that darkness as well as doing our background work. So let's just darken up a little bit the lines on the back, just a little bit, just so we see them. And that brush gives us a different texture. And then you should have enough of where you've really made all those dark areas dark, and you've got some contrast, some really big white areas. So we're going to use our charcoal or our pencil to shade a little bit in there and make these white areas have a little more gray so that we soften where that elephant is. You can do this with your gray watercolor if you want to too, but this way I'm showing you both ways that you can make it work. They also make a really neat pencil. It's a graphite pencil, and it can be moved with water. So it's water soluble as well. So you can draw with it and then take your brush and use it to move around like a magic pencil. So I'm going to pick back up a charcoal because it's going to smear a little bit. If you don't have charcoal, you can just use your pencil and that will be perfect. And if you don't have all of this done, just jump in where you can and you'll be good. Or if you're watching my video, pause the video, get that done, rewind it if you need, and then pick back up and have your charcoal ready. So everyone grab a pencil and we're going to shade a little bit. Okay. So where we're going to shade is we're going to take away some of these big areas right here. So I'm going to use the side of my pencil so that it shades like this, because I can fill it in a little bit more. And I'm going to shade this area right here of the ear. I'm starting to take out some of that. So I'm just going to lightly shade it. See how that starts to take out some of that white? I'm going to give it a little shading right there. So shading that part of the ear right here. So you can shade that in. And sometimes when your pencil overlaps, you'll get some strokes there. So, and again, I'm using my pencil on the side. A lot of times I hold my pencil like this because that way it gives me full contact with a wider part versus just the point. So I'm going to come along here and I'm going to connect this spot right here. I'm going to fill this in. So I just hold it on the side and I'm going to use those lines in between, kind of go up. And I'm going to shade this area right here. Don't worry about it being perfect or just all covered. The idea is we're just taking away some of that white. So see how I'm just kind of shading that area. Another tip is if you use it on the side, if you rotate it a little bit every now and then, it'll sharpen your pencil for you. So just put on the side there. So what I did was I shaded this area that was white because see how dark it is over there? I shaded that area that was white between those two. And you can have it come up a line, kind of like you did with your brush. Remember that? Where you came up a line like that. And then you can have it come down a line. See, we've got these. Just like we did with there. So where it comes down that line. That gives you that idea. Now, the nice thing is you can do this with a pencil. You can make it even darker and come over. So you really get that value to blend just like that. Or you can just have it come right up against. You can also, if you get tired and you're like, oh, I'm tired of my charcoal, you can take gray watercolor. So a lot of times I use gouache instead of watercolor for something like this, but most people don't have gouache sitting around. And gouache is basically opaque watercolor. That's what it is. So, okay, so we should have something darker in here between that ear, connecting those spots and kind of giving us that idea. Let's go ahead and shade in this background leg. Remember, it's kind of behind. We can just color it in. And you can do it quickly. If you have trouble doing this, you can just put lines in too. They don't have to be that, or you can just go real fast like that, or just scribble along there. And that will give you, that will still give you some shading that takes that out of the paper. Okay. You should be rocking and rolling on this. This looks awesome. So now let's come along and let's do the trunk. And pretty much then you can come back in and you can kind of fuss and fidget and get all sorts of little details. But let's come over here to the trunk. Now notice this part of the trunk has some shading on it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that white out. I'm going to shade right on top of where we painted in this curve right here. And I'm going to take that up to about where the top of the curve ends. So I've shaded that. See what happens when I do that? How that darkening this part up. And it's fine to color and draw right on top of the watercolor. You could do it right on top, but we've got that shaded. So everywhere, see how when we took those little spots and we shaded those back, when we got rid of the white, it makes anything that is white kind of pop forward. Okie doke. So you've got this darker. So then I'm just going to shade along this half. You see how we've got a lot of white right here? So I'm going to take it and I'm going to come up right on top of the painting as though I divide it in half and come shade right up that trunk. All the way up to the ear. Look at that. That's giving you that value already that this is in shadow. And now you've got your darkest dark with your black, but you're shading that. You're being more subtle about that shading as you come around like that. So I shaded all the way along here. And then I'm going to let it go up a little bit up my line. Same idea we did with the paint. Let's see how I come along some of my lines like that. So I'm just coming along some lines. Just along, yep, just like that. You can even do. So I'm just coming along some lines and even up to the eye. Just some here and there. There's one that I came up. Get that one a little bit more. Yeah. So as we start to kind of shade those, we're getting that full value range. And all we're using is black and white and pencil and paper and black and gray watercolor. I mean, we're using the white of the paper to come forth. We're using the black of the watercolor and the gray in the watercolor and the pencil. Okay, go ahead and do that same thing. We're going to shade right here along the top, just above that ear. Right here, where you put those, and go ahead and bring some of those down a little bit. Where you put the lines, you can bring your shading on down around to the ear. Okay. This is giving you the idea that we're focusing on where the dark parts are, and then we're rounding that gradient. We're taking that black and going from the gray to the white. I'm going to come in here in the corner and kind of go around the eye a little bit. Too. Anywhere you want to add a little gray because you really want to take away some of that white. Where you don't want to take away is right here on this end where we really want it to highlight, and right here on the front. But I may take away a little bit more behind that ear. Oh yeah, let's do that. Let's do that. Let's shade that up. So, and I'm on the side. I don't know if y'all can hear my paper against my pencil against the paper as it really rubs, but you can color really quickly this way. Now, if you're using charcoal, the other thing you can do is you can use something to smear it. So you can use your finger, or you can use something that's called a stomp. But you can always do that too. So that's when you get into it, you can do it a little bit with pencil, but you're not really supposed to do it with pencil. You're technically not really supposed to do it with your finger because there's a lot of oil on your fingers. But you know what? I always have my finger on me. I don't always have other tools, so I use my finger all the time. I didn't leave my finger at home. Okay, so do you see how in the light where we've put that dark, and then we've put the gray, and then we've kept the white, how you start getting that full value range for our grisaille. And you can come along and you can shade this leg more. You can add more wrinkles the same way we did it. You can shade up around the eye. But you can really start to blend those two back and forth. And then the neat thing is the way to really make the whites pop is to fill in the rest of your background with the gray, because that way then the only white on your paper is actually in the elephant. So it really pops it forward. It makes this part really stand out because you've pushed all the rest away. Then if you have your white watercolor, you can end up using that on top. Now, let me give you a tip about the white watercolor. It won't actually color white. What it will do is take away some of the darkness. So if you need to make some of this black gray, it will lighten it up on top. So as you go through and you find you might need to do that, that's where you can put your white watercolor. Other than that, we've got an elephant. You can choose to, I do want you to fill in the rest of your background and do that, but do it at your own time. And if you have any other questions about the shading, you can let me know. But this really emphasizes keeping that black and white and then the gradients where we get our full value range, but how you can combine those together to really pull it to the front, which is grisaille. It makes it look like sculpture. So